Hey, welcome to a Thanksgiving edition of Hellbound. First off, we'd like to say welcome. Second off, we'd like you to know that this happens to be the 400th anniversary of the first meeting of the Pilgrims and the Natives for the first Thanksgiving. The date was October 21st, 1621. An amazing story in itself. It was a world changer for North America. It was a world changer for Europe. First off, the Mayflower brought the Pilgrims that fall of 1620, and after a rough voyage, they didn't land till like November of 1620. Weather being what it was, cold, wintry New England, they really didn't have any time to plant any crops or seeds or anything that they brought over. And within the first month, 8 of the crew members had died. Now what they mostly did was they stayed on the boat and they sent like little parties to shore to like hunt and try to get some food, and evidently they would run into some of the natives. Well, it wasn't really a friendly exchange at first, and they were kind of weary of each other, as you would be. It's almost like a spaceship came from outer space and was in your backyard, and it was a world rocker for the people on the boat. It was a world rocker for the people that inhabited North America. But what happened was, come spring of that year, after a very harsh winter, over half of the Mayflower crew had perished, starvation, whatever. And the remaining ones, it's been written that they were so weak, half of the Mayflower was so weak that they weren't even, they didn't have enough strength to even bury the ones that had already died. Well, just when it looked like it was hopeless for the whole expedition, out of the woods comes an Indian named Squanto. And believe it or not, you know, you want to talk about God, you want to talk about providence, you want to talk about whatever. But Squanto years earlier had been captured as a teenager by some European fur traders and actually brought over to Europe and enslaved, and eventually was sent to a monastery in Spain, where for a couple of years the monks raised him, and they kind of taught him English and kind of like some of the European ways. So anyway, years later, Squanto got a boat from England and he sailed back to his homeland, which was Pawtuxet. And at the time he was enslaved and captured, he was actually married and they had a thriving village. Well, the time that Squanto had arrived back to his little home village, well, the diseases from the Europeans had taken over and his whole village was wiped out. There was nothing left of the Pawtuxet tribe and Squanto's wife and family, and they were just gone. So fast forward a couple months later, and here's the Mayflower setting anchor, up in Cape Cod. And crazy as it may sound, these hunting parties that came ashore that had no idea, how to survive, and they were dying by the dozen every month. And lo and behold, one day out of the woods, here comes a native Indian, and he pretty much they kind of mix it up, and Squanto could speak English, and it was to the astonishment of everybody. All of a sudden, they were able to communicate. And so by the spring of that year, with half of the Mayflower dead and half of them starving to death, Squanto got together with some of the other natives, and they acted like the Red Cross. They came in, they nursed these people back to health, and by spring they was able to teach them the native ways, how to plant corn or tobacco, whatever that they were doing to try to survive, and showed them the ways of the wild, the forests. And as a result of that, the Mayflower people, the survivors, got a little bit stronger and was able to plant and harvest, and come fall of that year of October, they had a big celebration with the harvest, and they got together and they played games and they talked amongst themselves. They signed treaties, and with Squanto as the interpreter, he was able to make it where everybody kind of felt happy with the newcomers and the old comers, to the point where for 2 generations after that first Thanksgiving, there was peace among the natives and the English people, where they would trade, and the tribes, the friendly tribes to the Europeans, actually they grew to be quite strong, because they could take the knowledge that the Europeans brought to them, like iron and gunpowder, rifles, and different things, and as a result, these other tribes could trade them with even some of their enemy tribes in the interior, and they got to be quite the powerful tribe. And like I said, for 2 generations, they were at peace. Now, what set off 40 years later, the spark that kind of that just kind of ruined everything for everybody is conjecture. No one really knows for sure, like who threw the first rock or whatever. I mean, you can argue that till the cows come home, but that particular year, that Thanksgiving was the first, and it happened to be 400 years ago today as we film this. All happened as a result of this gentleman Squanto. And the saddest part about this story is if you try to find a memento or a monument towards Squanto, there's like pretty much nothing up in New England, up in the Cape Cod area. There is one rock with a small plaque where it kind of talks about him, and it says he died near this spot, but the fact is he didn't die near that spot, and there's really nothing else out there that you know, as a tribute to Squanto. And it's just a fascinating story, and one you can look at. Disney's got a movie about Squanto. I think it's pretty good, and there's a lot of writings about it. And it really, if you want to know about history, you got to look into this story. I mean, there was hell paid by the Pilgrims. There was hell paid by the natives. And like I said, today, as you carve your turkey, remember those guys that first sailed on that boat, first came on the land here in North America, they had to carve a country. So from Hellbound to us, we'd like to say happy Thanksgiving and enjoy the day, enjoy your family. But remember 400 years ago where it started, and pass it on to your children, where someday they could pass it on to their children, because it's just an amazing American story.